Voters in Bridgeport are making their voices heard yet again. The city is holding a new Democratic primary in the race for mayor after allegations of ballot tampering caused the judge to toss out the results from September. Eyewitness News reporter Olivia Schuler joins us now live in Bridgeport to break down what happens next. Good morning, Olivia.
Good morning. Well, people on their ballots once again will find incumbent Mayor Joe Ganim and John Gomes. Now, people may remember that back in September, Joe Ganim's campaign was accused of stuffing envelopes into a ballot drop box. But now Gomes' campaign is also finding themselves in some hot water. Now, last week is when that campaign was accused of circulating absentee ballot applications without properly registering them. This entire election process has been unique. However, state officials are encouraging people to get out and vote. Historically, voter turnout has been low. As of Monday, the Office of the Connecticut Secretary of the State says 2,731 absentee ballots have been requested and 1,306 have been returned. Several absentee boxes have added cameras in an effort to deter or catch any foul play, but that's not the only measure to boost election security. In a statement from the press secretary, Jillian Hurst, she tells Eyewitness News, quote, "We have closed procedural loopholes, conducted spot training for election staff, identified additional locations eligible for supervised absentee ballot voting, conducting spot checks calls to absentee ballot voters, and recruited over a dozen volunteer attorneys to work on site." Now, according to Judge Clark's order, there will be another general election on February 27th. Now, according to the Office of the Secretary of the State, we will know the results of this election on or before 5 o'clock on Wednesday. In the next half hour, we're going to share more from each candidate ahead of today's election. We're live this morning in Bridgeport. Olivia Schuler, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.